Everybody knows that I'm a fan of Harlequins,
Yeah. Okay.
as evidenced by this.
Your hat.
But I don't mean that type of Harlequin. I mean fucking clowns, bitch.
Punchinellos?
Really, I'm not a fan of clowns.
Nah,
They kind of suck. They're not really scary. And the people insist on making them scary. And it's like, dude, it's not going to happen, all right?
Pretty lame.
All the movies always suck with a few exceptions. It's not happening.
Yeah.
But that's okay because the guy we're talking about, Pennywise, not really even a fucking clown.
Yeah.
So get over it, fucks. It's not a clown horror movie. We said it once. We said it again. Anyway, it's time for another Stephen King's turn my Harlequin cap around.
You could have used one of your Pennywise hats.
I could have, but, too far.
Yeah. Also
Oh.
makes too much sense.
Yeah, I would have to sluice over there. Cue that sound.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's time, man. It's time for another Stephen King's shit or hit or it or hit or shit, whichever I always forget which one goes first.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. The point is, it's time again because It Chapter 2 finally splattered its way onto the screen, and it took us a little bit, but we went to go see it, and we're gonna talk about it, man. Now it's fair to say that this movie was highly anticipated, so much so that I predicted amongst our discussions, so nothing that we can prove.
Yeah.
I predicted though, and we discussed this actually ahead of time. I predicted that people were gonna have an immediate adverse reaction to it because they had elevated this Pennywise, this version of Pennywise, to iconic status super fast.
Yeah.
It was like a Heath Ledger Joker thing. Like immediately he was like, "That's it. He's an icon."
Yeah.
Now anything that follows will inevitably disappoint or fail to some degree or another. Now I don't know. I'm interested to see where you stand on how much that is actually the result of that response, which I still do partially, credit to that, and how much it is the actual film. Is this a good sequel? Is this a good adaptation? Is this a bad sequel or a bad adaptation? Is it one or the other for either one of those categories? We will fucking find out right here. Now, you were kind of, based on our previous review of It Chapter 1, you were kind of looking forward to It Chapter 2 because you kind of like the second section a lot more in some regards than the first section.
Upon reviewing of the show miniseries, I thoroughly enjoyed the
And of
second
course,
section.
this is one of the few books you've actually read, so
Yeah.
you actually have familiarity with the concept. With the story. So there is one thing that I have to point out immediately. This is a long fucking movie.
Yeah.
It's like 3 hours, maybe even a little bit more. I don't know, but
250, I believe.
it's fucking long. You know what I'm saying? So if long movies with a lot of story aren't your thing, you're probably not gonna like this movie. Because a lot of the responses that I have read from people go towards it being meandering. Fair enough. I can see why people would say that. However, I gotta say that the stuff they point out as meandering is stuff that's actually in the book.
Yeah.
In comparison to the first one, this one sticks a
Yeah.
lot closer to what goes on in the book.
It's almost exactly how it is in the book.
It's just like kind of like the variations in the scares basically is the difference.
And I think that is a little bit to a fault.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the way the book is structured, things are going on at the same time.
Right.
So this basically just kind of retells the first movie in ways. But I think it does show different scenes so that it doesn't feel too much of a retread.
I actually thought it was kind of clever the way they did it. Now, I have heard that too, like, oh, it's just kind of retelling the first one. But like you say, it's not really.
Yeah.
It's filling in gaps. And considering that, again, some critics were like, this just feels like they just wanted to show more of the kids, basically. But no, that's actually a conceit in the book. Now, they've changed certain things, obviously. But in the book, they do get together and start to remember certain things. They just managed to fill in gaps that they couldn't fill in the first one with those memories. And it just happened to, for the most part, work with a lot of those things. So it was interesting, to say the least, because, they had kind of spent a lot of their load in the first one. So I was wondering how they were going to do that in those sequences. And what was your overall take of that? Well, I'll tell you mine and see if you agree with it. I felt that basically all these characters reconvene in Derry, and they all have to kind of first of all remember who they were because they forget because that's how this whole thing works.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, some people were like, "Oh, that's convenient." No, that's part of the fucking story.
Yeah.
So you like it or you don't. But anyway, they forget and they have to kind of get their memories back along the way, collect a totem basically that anchors them to their present time. So we get to see kind of a flashback to certain things that happened that summer in between scenes sometimes after the fact, sometimes before the facts. Further things that flesh out the character in some regard. I will say that some of these flashbacks, not all of them, didn't quite hit for me. I think most notably Eddie's. There was just some that was like, that was stupid or unnecessary. But for the most part, I thought it was pretty interesting. Ultimately, the most interesting then it'll be Mike. The guy that everybody was like, he didn't get any fucking character development. All of a sudden, he is as part of the story, kind of like the key figure. So it was kind of a weird shift, and I think the Mike thing underlines one of the weirdest things about this movie, and it's something that might throw off a lot of people, even people that liked it, which I did. Since this one is a lot more loyal to the material in the book, it kind of conflicts a little with the first one because the first one was loyal to the material in a different way.
Yeah.
It was loyal in spirit rather than a direct adaptation.
Yeah, that's why I said it's a little odd because it like you said, the first one did the story in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So to see this one just basically be the book is a little odd.
Yeah. It kind of allows for it because it is flash forward. I mean, not flash forward. It's moving forward 27 years. But at the same time, it is kind of like a jarring thing because being that, it serves the reader more than it does the casual viewer.
Yeah.
And the first movie was a movie that served both the reader and the casual viewer. It introduced Pennywise to people that in a way that they didn't have to ever read the book. And now this one's like, you're not going to get the whole meat of it unless you read the book. Yeah. Which was an odd choice. I get it from a fan's point of view and somebody that read the book. I'm like, I appreciate a lot of the stuff they did. But I'm kind of like, I kind of get why people wouldn't be into some of this stuff. Because it would either not make sense to them or be like, that's weird.
Especially with something that brought in so many people.
Mm-hmm.
New people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was a very odd choice. One that, by the way, I'm just spoiler alert, there's haze on the camera. This is a problem.
God damn it.
This is a problem that happens in the summer. The camera gets a weird haze.
Yeah.
So that's why that's there. It's not some phantom creeping across the lens.
Pennywise.
Anyway, that was a very weird choice, man. I liked that as a reader. I liked a lot of the stuff and how it stuck to the basic outline, or even sometimes a detailed outline of the events of the second half of the book. But I was concerned about like how people would be like taking that, and apparently some people just didn't dig that. Another thing that concerned me was the excessive use of CGI. Now the first one did have an excess of CGI, but it was more out of necessity than anything, They were
big ass effects,
Yeah, they were working on a budget on top of that, and they just had to facilitate some of these big creative visions.
Yeah.
Here they had a bigger budget, so they didn't have to do CGI all the time, but they do CGI like a lot of the time.
There's some odd uses too, like there's ghouls in the movie, and they'll just CG ghouls instead of just having an effect.
Yeah, man. Like,
and it's very clearly a CGI pasted on someone.
Right, like the Mrs. Kirsch, I think is the biggest one. Beverly's character goes and visits her old home and encounters this old woman, and basically she comes out as this big lanky thing. Now an actor played that person.
Yeah.
Like the monster version of Mrs. Kirsch was played by a fucking guy.
Yeah.
That looks pretty creepy because he's super thin, but yeah, they just kind of CGI'd over the effect. So it's like too CGI. Fine. With a big lanky monster, I can live with that. it makes kind of some sense to have to,
Yeah.
repair some shit with CGI or whatever. Plus, in the first one, it gave it a distinct look. So I guess I'm okay with that to some degree. However, there was some parts in this where I was like, did they really need that? Like like CGI message being scrawled
Yeah.
on Ben's stomach by otherwise invisible Pennywise. It was like CGI blood. Just, it was weird, dude. Like, why would... There's a way to do that practically that looks way better. There was some weird CGI choices. And I think the biggest one that people are having like an adverse reaction to is the final form of it.
Hmm.
What do you think about that? Because this was one of the breaking points of the original miniseries,
Yeah.
that they couldn't capture this idea of it. In the original miniseries, of course, like in the book, it was basically this huge spider thing.
Yeah.
Which again is not the real form of it, but it's the form it took, a final form. What did you think about the how it looks here?
I'm kind of mixed on it
Mm-hmm.
because I think at times it looks okay,
Right?
but I think the thesis behind its design is kind of corny.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like this big ass Pennywise, and like the suit is part of the spider. Like it has the big frilly lace is like the
Right.
butt and stuff.
Yeah, like the anatomy of the spider is kind of accentuated by the suit. Yeah, and I'm kind of with you at the time. At times, the design actually looked fucking cool. Like it was kind of clever the way they integrated Spider and his costume into the same thing.
Yeah.
At other times, it didn't, and not in a movie-breaking way for me
No,
personally.
no, it's definitely better than the
Yeah, then the miniseries
ugly
Spider.
ass
Yeah.
shitty puppet that's like this big,
Um,
and everybody's like, serious?
Conceptually, I liked it because it showed kind of its unwillingness to budge.
Yeah.
He was a much more aggressive character here than he was in the book. He was like monstrously aggressive as a whole, and towards the end even more.
Yeah.
He was like fighting the fuck back.
Yeah, I think that is a big difference in this is I think in the book and even in the miniseries that there's kind of a fear behind him
Mm-hmm.
and that he doesn't want them to be there.
Right.
He's just trying to scare them out. At least that's the vibe it gives.
Mm-hmm.
Here he's just like, nah, man.
Yeah, he's pretty intent on destroying. And I will talk about that because that's also something that, I'm on the fence about a little bit. But yes, he is monstrously aggressive here comparatively to the book and the miniseries. Now, I know people that were loyal to or want some more even more loyalty to the book would have preferred the cosmic exchange of mental wills that the
Yeah.
book has. But the movie didn't allow enough material there. If they would have brought that material back into this part of the movie, it would have been an even longer movie.
Yeah.
So they
And it would have been very risky too.
Yes, it would have been very risky. They still give hints of that to the fans, that there is something working behind the scenes. But I think that this final form of it works on that level. It to people that are in the know about what goes on in the book and the cosmic implications of it, the deadlights as represented in this final form, that's the final form. That's the true form of it. Those lights are the true form of it. And, that kind of falls in line with what's in the book. This big, chaotic, tumbling mass of lights. That was the true form of it. This was still just an avatar.
Yeah.
And as an avatar, I like that it kind of had that defiant vibe behind it. It refused to let itself, be defeated in a sense. There was moments when that, in conjunction with the deadlights, worked awesome. Like I love when he grabs Richie, and the mouth opens and the deadlights are shooting through its mouth,
Yeah.
and it showed that connection between the two, and I thought that was cool. I thought that said a lot about the creature. But yes, sometimes a creature, in terms of how it looks, in terms of the aesthetics, doesn't. It's not that it sucks to me
No.
anyway. It's that it's distracting. Maybe that's the way to put it.
It just seems a little too out there.
I think it's that it never quite 100% feels real.
Yeah.
Like its head is sometimes too big, and sometimes it's just the right size. And then when they finally get to defeating it, they revert to physical effect, which I liked. And then as it goes into a last physical effect, I was like, oh, pancake face. You know what I'm
I
saying?
kind of like that.
It was weird, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I liked all of that, but at the same time, yeah, there was always like this disconnect.
It's a little,
bit.
yeah, it's a little. I think it works really well when they're like, they go at one point they go into like this cave to hide from it, and he's kind of like taunting them and scratching, and it's basically just a big head.
Right.
I think that looked pretty good, like when he's clawing at them in through that hole because it's shot well.
Right.
You know, you get scale. But there's a lot of shots where, you know, they show it full scale and it just doesn't feel...
Yeah, there's nothing to compare
Right.
it to
Yeah.
that makes it feel huge.
Yeah.
It just like that's a weird
It's
spider
a
thing.
spider.
Overall, I think the concept was a nice idea and it works at times, and it didn't break the movie for me. I think I liked it more than I disliked it, and I never hated it. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
So let's talk about these other elements. But what did you bring up that I said I was going to bring up later?
I don't know.
Cool memory, dude. Okay, I mentioned that some scares don't exactly gel for me.
I think... Okay, well, I'll say this. We're kind of all for, like... We're not against the jump scare thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as long as it works.
Right.
And this one has, like, a lot more jump scares than the first one. Like, a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally every second there's a poof.
Right.
Some are effective. Like, I think a really good one was the one with Bowers when he looks under the thing and freaking what's-his-face is there. And
Right.
it was good. But, yeah, some of them are just kind of odd. Like, it's literally just things jumping. And it leads somewhere, which is good. It's not just like a boo moment.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just kind of odd.
Yeah, I agree. There's some that it's not that you don't understand why they're there.
Yeah.
It's that you're like, did we really need that to get there?
Yeah.
You know, so I agree with that. I don't think, with the exception of like one or two, I don't think there are any that are cheap. So at least there's that.
Yeah, that's the thing. They always end up leading somewhere, or they're built up properly.
Now let's talk about the characters here. There's a lot of characters to handle, and this is where the movie is really unwieldy, or feels unwieldy, because we really literally follow each of these characters on some distinct path that they're on, while they, you know, reassess their memory and ultimately come together at the end to fight it in its final form, right? So this entire process takes the bulk of the movie running time.
Yeah.
And it does feel disjointed. It feels meandering at times. I can see why people say that. As a reader, as a person that read the novel, is familiar with the material, it didn't bother me. I enjoyed indulging in these characters. I actually wish that there was more to indulge in, because some characters were a little thin, like Ben. And it's not the actor's fault. It's just that there was not a lot for him to chew on. There should be a lot for him to chew on. Ben, Beverly, and Bill are the ones that have the most to chew on in the book. And I felt he was a little thin. Bill, I question why they changed his motivation from his wife, Audra, which they included in the movie but at the beginning, but then they never fulfilled her role like they did in the miniseries or in the book. I question why they changed that to this kid. Now, you might be saying, well, yeah, because it's still playing, harping on his memories of Georgie. But I felt that was resolved in the first one pretty well. You know, like he had left that behind in some sense. So him remembering would have included that. So it was kind of odd. I didn't mind it, mind you. I just felt that I would have preferred the Audra stuff versus this. But what Bill was doing did end up galvanizing the team pretty well. So it worked in that regard. I just didn't see the need to do the kid angle again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was a little weird for me. But you know, I could have. I would. It's just a matter of preference. I would have preferred the Audra thing. You
Yeah.
know, I would have felt more natural. Now there was elements of the other characters which are lesser in an extent. I really like what they did with Mike. They did give him a lot more substance and kind of made up for how thin his character was in the first one. And I think everybody will enjoy Eddie and Richie. I think that's where the heart of the movie lies. Now, some people complain that there's too much humor in this movie. I didn't. It didn't bug me. Did it bug you?
No, I think it does. I could see why it would bug someone because it does build up these like kind of big tense moments and then it does kind of deflate them a lot. But they're funny and they worked well and they're
Yeah.
kind of like how the characters are, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think their characters hit stride closest to what was in the books. Um, and I think the humor was very well placed for the most part. Uh, it was. It's not that this is not a scary movie to me. I just like the concept of it. I like the story of it. So I wasn't like tense or anything. But had I been, those would have been relieving moments for me. Like, oh, that's a nice little respite from what's going on. I enjoyed the humor in it. So go figure. Maybe it's just a matter of taste. I don't know, but I know a lot of people are bitching about that. But overall, the characters all were pretty satisfactory to me. I did enjoy seeing some material that was cut out from the script for the first one integrated into this. Most notably, the memory of Stanley reciting his, what's it called?
Mitzvah?
Bar mitzvah, yeah, his bar mitzvah speech. That was originally in the first one, and it was a montage sequence that was narrated with what he was saying, and it was right before the whole team got back together again, and they used it to that same effect here. So that was cool as a fan of the script of the original to see that being used here in the same way, only with the adults. That was pretty cool. There was a lot of nods to the book that had to be nods because they couldn't obviously adapt everything, and some changes had been affected in the first one that I really enjoyed. Stephen King finally had his cameo in it, and it was a good one. I liked it. I don't know about you. Dug it.
Yeah,
Thought it was pretty funny.
pretty long one too.
And there was a running gag about Bill, which I guess would be the de facto representative of Stephen King himself, not being able to finish end stories well, which has always been like a long running criticism of people that clearly don't read King. Just saying. So that was a cool little running gag, and then the Stephen King cameo was pretty neat. So yeah, that's all stuff that I liked versus the stuff that either some stuff didn't hit or I was in the middle with. Give me something, elaborate on something either you liked or didn't like.
I think Bill Hader's really good in this.
Yeah, yeah.
He's probably the best one of the grown-ups.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not completely sold on what's his name, McAvoy.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because when they announced it, I was like, hell yeah, my boy.
Yeah, McAvoy's dope.
But watching the movie, I was kind of like, he's a guy.
Yeah,
I felt like they could have picked someone better.
You know who I felt? I liked Ben. I liked the actor that played him. It's just maybe it's that he's my favorite character in the first one.
Yeah.
Maybe because we're fat guys, we like Ben the most. But really, I think overall people just like Ben. He's the guy that gets the girl. He's the guy that you root for the most, besides Bill, I guess. But I didn't dislike Ben, and I wish they would have given him a little bit more substance. But yeah, with McAvoy, it's again, McAvoy rocks. I think he did a good job. He did get a lot of stuff.
His character feels reduced in a weird way.
Yeah, a little bit. You know what I'm
like
saying?
he was kind of like the leader in the
Mm-hmm.
other media, I guess, and here he's just another one of
And
them.
it's weird. It feels more like he's being victimized.
Yeah.
Which again, I would have bought a lot more if it was the Audra thing versus this kid that's introduced. I really, really felt that thing was resolved in the first one.
Yeah, I mean they
Like, you
try
got
to
over the Georgia thing. You literally fucking killed the kid.
they try to add
so to
like
speak.
another wrinkle to it, but
Yeah, it
it's
didn't
already
quite
been-
gel.
yeah, it's
And I
already
think
been.
really that was the big problem.
yeah.
But more than Bill, I thought they kind of did Beverly a disservice.
Yeah.
She felt really thin, and some of her lines were like, "What the fuck is that line?"
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
And she never, it never feels like she comes full circle as a character.
yes, and it's weird because they introduce her husband
Yes.
at the beginning, and this is like a subplot
Yeah.
that in the book that supports the idea that she's kind of reliving her past. She's in an abusive relationship, and they introduce that in the movie. In the book, we get a conclusion to that because her husband comes to Derry to look for her under the implication or idea that she's having an affair with the person that called her there, and he is ultimately manipulated by it. Very briefly, but he is. In the book, I felt that that King could have done a lot more with Tom.
Yeah.
He just kind of comes, does his thing, and gets killed, and he's gone. And I thought they were going to do that to really give Beverly that final, card over being manipulated and pushed by men.
She just, it doesn't really happen.
Yeah, in the end, she's just like, well, she's with Ben now, so she didn't really get that growth that's very necessary to her character. I thought that was the biggest disservice to any character in the movie. I was like, what the?
I think also, I mean, it's kind of how it is in the book, but Bowers is kind of pointless again.
Yes. Now let's talk. Oh, actually, yeah. You know what? That's what I was going to talk about. Yes, I agree, and I agreed, and I know you agreed with me too about Tom being kind of pointless. I thought that they were going to either do Tom or Henry Bowers and just combine their roles and have them consistently throughout, and they kind of do that with Henry. He's there a lot more than than you feel he is in the book.
Yeah, and I think they do a good job of explaining why he's there and everything. So.
Yes, except that I felt that we could have used a little bit more of the Pennywise influence.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not talking Pennywise talking them through the moon, like in the series or the book. Excuse me. I like the balloon thing they did when, in effect, Pennywise led him out of the mental institution. I like that. I thought that was a little, it was understated and nice.
Yeah, and they have the guy driving him around.
Although I would have been all for Pennywise turning into a dog sequence, like in the miniseries and the book. But the point is, I like that. That was nice. And yes, bringing back Patrick was a cool touch. I like all that. I thought he had a lot to do, given that the character is very limited in the book at that point. I like that they make his return credible. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody was like, how is he going to survive into a... I like that. I like all that. I like that if you're a reader, you understand what that means, that he got blamed for everything. But again, for the people that don't know that, do they just assume that he came out the other end of that sewer and was crazy and was locked up for no good reason? Or do they know that he got blamed for all those murders?
I mean, they do have that scene where, like, they take him down because he killed his dad.
Right.
Yeah.
So they know at least
they tried, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how well those ideas communicate. And that was, like I said earlier, that was one of my major concerns. To the reader, you understand what's going on, but to people, certain ideas don't come across well. You know what I'm saying? So, whatever. I did like Henry. I did like what they did with him. I felt they could have done a little bit more.
Yeah.
They could have used him in the Tom role just to really give Beverly her due, like you said, make her come full circle. But yeah,
he's just kind of like a distraction again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
I also think that again they don't capture the feel of Pennywise's grasp on Derry as well in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And especially once he's dead, everybody's just like, yeah, that was cool. Everything's fine, and it's a little odd.
I'm gonna go opposite with you on this one. I thought there was a pervasiveness to his evil here, but it was a lot more understated, which might read as like they didn't quite hit it. I think it was understated, but I think it was deflated by the ending. which in the book is like this colossal fucking
Yeah.
ending. The town entirely sinks basically into the ground. Here, just the well house sinks, and then yeah, it's that feeling of nobody really
Yeah.
knew.
Everybody in the town's like, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So the beginning, preserving the Adrian Mellon killing, with the bridge and the kid and
that's
Pennywise is hunting this kid and it's implicated that there's things going on. It was understated. I agree, but I liked it. But
Yeah, I think mainly that's what I'm talking about.
yeah,
Is the
I think
ending.
I agree with you in that aspect.
Um, but yeah, that's another thing people are crying about, the hate crime thing.
Yeah,
kinda like,
let's
come
briefly
on,
touch
man.
on this. There was people going like warning, this might trigger you basically if because a gay guy is killed at the beginning and it's a hate crime. Again, this was in the book.
Yeah,
It was. There's a reason it was there. People did that, still do that. It's not like if it happens in the movie, they're saying, "Hey guys, this is cool." It's just circumstance.
yeah.
This is life. It's happening. But here's something even worse than life. You know what I'm saying? That's the statement being made there. This is horrible, horrible life. And then again, you get that idea that part of it is Pennywise manipulating all this hate, but at the same time, here's something worse than that. It's if you get offended by that, I'm sorry, but you're hopeless. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing to get offended with that. So I don't know what that hubbub is, but yeah, it's been going around.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. I did like that scene. Again, very loyal to the novel. Bit a little armpit, so pretty cool. So anyway, it seems like we're just gonna tear this film apart, but I'm gonna say, or that in terms of grading it. Um, but despite all that we just said, that I just said, I'm speaking as I'm speaking for both of us here. I actually really enjoyed this movie. There was a lot more that I liked in it than I had problems with, and I have a feeling that upon rewatching it, I'm gonna like it a lot more. And I have a feeling that if Machete ever does his full cut, where he reshuffles and integrates stuff,
Yeah.
that this is gonna be an even meatier
I
experience.
think that is something to wait for, because it does work really well for us.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not for everyone,
Right.
but you could see the benefit of having it arranged properly,
Right.
because this does feel like two very different movies
Mm-hmm.
with the same characters.
Yeah, it really does. And so it's kind of an odd way to watch one story when one is less dedicated to loyalty to the material and the other one is heavily dedicated to it, and trying to see them mesh.
Yeah.
And at times it works, and at times you're like, okay, I can allow that, and just one final thing, this is a big thing. They still didn't put in the Well House flashback sequence, which a lot of people were looking forward to, where we see Pennywise first come to Derry, and the whole movie I was waiting for that. I was like, come on, baby, give me that fucking scene, because it was one of the great scenes in the original script. And of course, Machete was like, it's going to be in the second one, and it was not. If you haven't seen it and you were waiting for that scene, Nathan, it's not going to be there, man, and that's sad, because I was really looking forward to that. It's filmed, so presumably it's going to be in that longer cut, but we do get the smokehouse sequence in a manner of speaking. I liked how they did that. They updated to have Mike be the one discovering all that stuff, and he's the one that has the vision. I like that a lot, man, because really having all the kids have that vision, that would have been a big thing that they forgot. You know what I'm saying? So that they didn't get to do it with the kids in the first one, and they actually had Mike just experience it. I thought that was a good, way to patch that over, and it allowed Mike to explain some of the bigger concepts of the
Some of
ritual
them,
of
yeah.
Chud. That's very difficult to explain to a reader, and they changed some of the stuff around, and they gave it a lot more substance in terms of giving the idea that it had, in a manner of speaking, kind of been defeated before, and they were just kind of winging it, and in terms of trying to defeat him again. I liked all that stuff, and it
And they
tied
ended
in
up-
with Stanley's storyline, which was really nice. You were gonna
Yeah.
say?
No, I just lost it.
Oh, so yeah, all that stuff I kind of really liked, and I hope they elaborate even more upon it. I wish visually it would have been represented in a different way because it did it in this weird stylized way. And I was like,
a little much, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't cool visually. But I did like the idea behind it. It was pretty neat. And the changes to it allowed for a concession between the more huge cosmic implications of the book and the more, kind of, you have to kind of tamper it down for the audience. Now, it allowed a middle ground that was kind of a nice, okay way to do that particular thing. So, anyway, you want to add anything before we go to the final rating and thoughts?
I think the only thing that I do kind of miss in this is that feeling that he wants them out of the town. It's not really in here. Like you said, he's more vicious, I guess. And one of my favorite scenes is a scene in the miniseries with Stanley's head talking to him, taunting them. And you get that, but it's completely different.
It's different, yeah.
It was a little odd. You can get a little thing head. But, whatever. It's just one of those things, one of those preference things.
I will say that it covered something that bothered me in the miniseries. I can't remember if it's in the book or not, but in the miniseries they use the grown-up Stanley's head and everybody recognizes him. You know what I'm saying? And here they use the kid Stanley's head.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Which I was like, okay, yeah, thanks. Because, I can't remember if it's in the book or not, but I just certainly remember it's in the miniseries. But yeah, man, or elaborate a little bit on that concern you're talking about.
It's just, I just like that, because I thought it really hammered the point that he had felt that fear, Pennywise, and you do get that feeling in the miniseries and even in the book that he just doesn't want them there because he sees them as a threat. Whereas here it kind of seemed like he did want them there.
I think this would have been fixed with the Henry Bowers thing if we had a little bit more.
Yeah.
If we had, like as I've mentioned, if we had a little bit more of the Pennywise influencing him. Pennywise influencing him, we would have gotten the point that he's trying to use Henry so that he doesn't have to do the work because he's afraid.
Because here the spook methods, which, I mean, they do happen, they just don't feel like an attempt to ward them off. They just feel like a normal Pennywise spook. You know what I mean?
Well, I know in the book we do know that he wants to kill them. It's just he's afraid of doing it.
Yeah.
And we kind of get that communicated when they go for the final confrontation and he separates them.
Yeah.
That's the idea. He's separating them. I just don't think the movie, for somebody that hasn't read the material, communicates that very well. He's just like, okay, I guess he's separating them. I mean, we saw that in the first one, so you should instinctually know. But I don't know how well it communicates that. I'm just assuming maybe it does, but I got it. I'm sure you got it, but we've read the material, so it's one of those things where you're like, I wonder how people took that. Did they get that? Also, but it's interesting because it's there, but then it doesn't quite.
It's not fleshed out enough.
Yeah.
Also, is Richie gay?
Right?
Hashtag.
Was that a thing?
I think that's what it was supposed to be because there's that scene that kind of goes nowhere if you don't take that into account, at least, with Pennywise saying that he knows a secret.
Right.
And if you don't take that end little scene with him scratching the little names, then it's like it's like a confusing scene. But I think he's a big time Otto.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was just me. But
nah, he was gay, dude.
Totally.
Because then there's that other scene where he's like, well, he's gay for that dude.
Yeah.
Because there's that scene where he's like, I don't have a wife. Anyway, hashtag gay. Bill Gator.
All right, so let's give this a final rating for you.
I think this will improve upon rewatching. That being said, I did like it.
Mm-hmm.
I can see why someone wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
Because it's very long and it does take that structure of the book. So you know how sometimes book stuff just doesn't work in movie form, or they have to change it. They kind of doesn't do that. It's just the book.
Yeah.
So it might not be for everyone. That being said, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Right.
Could have done with less CG, but whatever. I'll give it like a I can't wait for that
Mega
longer
cut?
cut. Yeah, because I think it will. I think it will improve it quite a bit. I'll give it like an 8.
Okay. And previously, I believe you gave the first one a 9. I think
Yes.
that's what it was. Now, I gave the first one a 9.5, and it's hard to grade this one. There's a lot that I like in this
Yeah,
movie.
it
Like
is.
tons of stuff that I like in this movie, and I like the cast. Even though I felt that some of the roles didn't quite get what they wanted out of them, and there's stuff in here that's really good in terms of the changes, and there's stuff that's excellent in terms of how it maintains loyalty but still integrates changes. Um, to the reader, it communicates a lot that the reader
Yeah.
understands. So yeah, man, it's clearly a movie that sought to please too many people and maybe will alienate a lot of people because of that. Thankfully, I'm not one of those people alienated. And like you, I agree that I think of the longer integrated with additional sequences, mega ultra cut of both movies stitched together will resolve a lot of those minor issues. I gave the first one a 9.5. I give this one, in its current state, an 8.5. I do think that I'm overshooting it a little bit.
Yeah, I was close to giving it a 7 because I do think that it does fall short on a couple
Yeah.
things.
Now, I stress that scary these movies are not to
No,
me.
yeah.
Not the original, not even the book. You know what I'm saying? I just love the story.
Yeah, it's a little not disappointing. It's not even disappointing. It's just a little unfortunate to see some of the stuff not fully fleshed out
Right.
in this form.
Now, if you found the first one scary, you're definitely not going to find this one scary in comparison, I think. I didn't find either of them scary. I just liked them, and I like both of them. But I do feel that some of the scares, as intended, won't hit the way they wanted them to. I do feel there's some silly stuff in here.
The hags.
Look, one of the best sequences for me was the Funhouse sequence, which is completely new. It's not in the book or anything like that. It felt claustrophobic. It felt scary. It felt, again, I say scary in the sense that I got what it was
Yeah.
communicating, and it felt weird, man. You know, like you felt the danger of air. But then they had that tongue thing happen, and it looks stupid. You know, the tongue looks like fucking shit.
There's a lot of tongue things in this.
There is a lot of
actually.
tongue things, and that was my least favorite sequence with one of the characters, Eddie, with the
That was goofy as hell.
the leper.
Yeah.
Mega tongue. This character
And
was
it's
pretty
like-
cool in the first one, and
Damn,
he's just tonguing.
It's like stiff, like up to here, and then the tips are like.
Yeah. And I get what it's saying. Of course, Eddie's horribly afraid of
Yeah.
germs and diseases and stuff. But, God, man, the tongue. And it was CGI as fuck
And
most
that
of the
whole-
time.
The whole scene as a whole was kind of
Yeah, it was not a good
not great.
sequence for him. He got the shittiest sequence of
Yeah.
them all. So, yeah, there's a lot of hit and miss stuff. So yeah, really, I think. In fact, you know what? Let me just erase my 8.5 and say 8 like you. But yeah, I think this will improve in how I personally like it when I rewatch it. Because there was a lot of baggage going into this movie. Even I that don't get super like, and I blow shit out of proportions. There's still a lot of baggage. This is one of my favorite stories of all time. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. And looking forward like you to the mega long cut. So anyway, tell us what you think about this movie if you saw it, and let us know in the comments down below. In the meantime, hit like, share, subscribe, and those notification buttons. But before you go, yes, I guess we have to declare it a hit.
It's a hit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's definitely a hit money wise. So.
You know, it's a hit for NECA. They're gonna have a lot of toys to make.
Yeah, can't wait for that tongue edition.
There's gonna be a
Oh.
there's gonna be a leper. There's gonna be a spider deluxe version, and you're gonna buy them all.
I would want the big ass spider version. That would be pretty cool.
It's already working.
That's it. Anyway, we're out, guys.